Welcome to the Kitsap County Department of Community Development, also known as DCD, series on land use and development basics called Start Here. Start Here is a resource that provides basic land and development information to help current and future landowners make the best decisions when considering a development or redevelopment project in Kitsap County. This video will introduce you to critical areas, why they are important, and give you an idea of what additional steps or considerations should be made if you have critical areas on a potential purchase or your current property. Critical areas play a vital role in keeping Kitsap County's natural beauty and systems healthy. In addition, the Growth Management Act requires counties to plan for and protect their critical areas. Critical areas are essential to understand because they can affect the project's location, design, and viability. The presence of critical areas on your parcel will likely increase cost and the timeline of development. There are 5 types of critical areas you will encounter in Kitsap County that we will discuss in more detail. These include wetlands, fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas, geologically hazardous areas, frequently flooded areas, and critical aquifer recharge areas. Buffers are vegetated lands adjacent to critical areas intended to protect the critical areas. Buffers serve different functions depending on the type of critical area they are designed to protect. For example, a buffer for a wetlands work by filtering storm runoff from surrounding development, trapping sediment, absorbing nutrients, and diminishing high flows. It can also provide a high-quality wildlife habitat area. Wetlands are typically inundated or saturated by surface or groundwater. It is not always evident visually except by soil typology. Wetlands can include swamps, marshes, estuaries, bogs, and ponds. What makes a wetland? Soil type, or what we call hydric soils, that are necessary for the formation of a wetland and categorizing a wetland. The soils must be saturated during some portion of the season. Typically, they're naturally occurring, but they can also include man-made features. Wetland plants have to be present. Some examples include duckweed, water lily, cattails, and water horsetail. Wetlands are essential in our environment because they filter or improve water quality, function as a storage for floodwaters, ease surface water runoff, especially in urban areas, and provide fish and wildlife habitats. The wetlands are rated in categories from 1, the highest, to 4, the lowest. The ratings are based on their sensitivity to disturbance, rarity, the ability to replace them, and the functions they provide. The impact on your development project will depend on the category of wetland that is on your property. The higher the rating, the larger the buffer. A professional wetland scientist will be able to help you delineate or locate your wetland and categorize the type you have on your property. We have a list of wetland professionals available on our DCD website. One of the bonuses of Kitsap County is the ability to observe and enjoy a variety of wildlife. Fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas serve a critical role in sustaining these needed habitats and priority species for the functional integrity of the ecosystem. If altered, it may reduce the likelihood of the species existing over time. Wildlife habitat buffers specify how development is regulated within sensitive wildlife habitats, including allowed encroachments, prohibitions, and when wildlife studies are required. Wildlife habitat buffers vary by species and type. Development in a fish and wildlife conservation area may often be managed or mitigated through implementing a habitat management plan. You will want to work with a qualified biologist to provide a report to the Department of Community Development. We have many geologically hazardous areas in Kitsap County. They do not have to be steep slopes to be considered hazardous. Protections include tsunamis, volcanic hazards, and erosion hazards. It is advised to hire a geotechnical analyst who has experience in understanding the geotechnical aspects of the land features. If the features are not as extreme as they may appear on paper, a geotechnical letter can be drafted stating that the analyst has no concerns with the proposed development, which would suffice. In other instances, it may require a geotechnical report that is an in-depth report, costs more money, and dives into requirements that might be needed to provide safe development. Buffers associated with geologically hazardous areas are primarily designed to protect property and human life. Buffers adjacent to steep slopes can increase stability and ensure that people and structures are protected in the event of a landslide or erosion event. Frequently flooded areas are lands and floodplain areas subject to a chance of flooding in any given year. It can also be an area subject to flooding due to high groundwater. Generally, floodplains are designated on maps by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or what we know as FEMA. The National Flood Insurance Program, through FEMA, provides flood insurance for homeowners that private policies will not cover. This program also requires communities to adopt and enforce floodplain management regulations that help mitigate flooding effects and reduce flood damage. Development proposed in these areas must consider flood hazards in the development proposal. Critical aquifer recharge areas aim to protect Kitsap County's drinking water by preventing pollution and maintaining supply. Potable water is essential to all life, and most of Kitsap County's drinking water comes from groundwater aquifers. These areas are vulnerable to contamination, and overdevelopment can reduce recharge rates, which is why they have special consideration when developing nearby. We are required by the Growth Management Act to protect these areas that will provide safe drinking water to current and future generations. Professional reports prepared for your property are valid for 5 years. This is important to consider in your timeline when working with consultants for a new report or purchasing land that had a previous report prepared. Like most things in the natural world, change happens over time to land, and a fairly recent survey will give you the best indication of the current state of the parcel. Change can also happen to the Kitsap County Critical Area Ordinance, which is periodically updated using the best available data. What was required in 1998 may not be the same today. Don't assume that the presence of critical areas is an immediate disqualification from development. They are a caution that the development may require more time, professional reports, financial resources, project changes, and possibly ongoing monitoring plans to make it happen. In the cases where it is impossible to avoid disturbing a critical area, mitigation might be an option. Mitigation is the restoration, enhancement, or creation of critical areas to compensate for land disturbance losses. The best place to begin is to review the Department of Community Development website and knowledgeable staff to help guide your project. The Kitsap County Parcel Search can help you understand if you have a mapped critical area on your property and is a great resource when considering a purchase for future development. This online tool is available on the Kitsap County website. You can search by parcel number or street address, or just by zooming into the location on the map. To view the critical areas theme, in the Manage Layers box, select the Choose a Theme drop-down arrow and select Critical Areas. The Legend tab in the Manage Layers box will help identify the critical areas displayed. Our staff can assist you in determining what additional permits and professional reports may be required to submit along with your building permit. Please see our Contact Us page for ways to reach us, including the ability to make an appointment to help fit into your schedule.